Ethiopia has declared a 6-month national state of emergency. That declaration follows territorial gains by Tigray rebels. The rebels say that they're considering marching on Addis Ababa authorities in the capital, and they've told residents to register their arms and prepare to defend their neighbourhoods. So why is the situation so concerning? And to answer that question and more, Africa-Asia Dialogue Senior Research Fellow for Analysis and Commentary, THEMBISA FAKUDE, joins me to discuss this further. THEMBISA, many thanks for your time this morning, and perhaps start by unpacking that very issue for us. Why is this particular situation that's happening in Ethiopia concerning?
Well, it's concerning because you have a group of armed individuals in one of the provinces seeking to secede from Ethiopia proper and forming their own independent country or a province with more autonomous powers. And that's the crux of this conflict. And then you have the national government, which is based in Addis Ababa, fighting those rebels under the banner of the Tigray People's Liberation Front. But there's a history behind this. And the history is because when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came into power, he promised to uproot corruption and go against those that are accused of human rights violations. And if you remember, the political elite of Ethiopia was dominated, before the advent of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, was dominated by the members of the TPLF. So the deep state in Ethiopia has always been members of the TPLF. So when you say you're going to go against those who are involved in corruption and those who violated basic human rights, you're basically saying you're going to be going against the members of the TPLF. And that's why you have the current standoff, even though, of course, the trigger was not necessarily this overall explanation that I've given you. The trigger was when the members of the TPLF attacked the positions of the Ethiopian National Defense Force in Mekelle in Tigray last November. That's what triggered the current situation. But the overall background to the story is what I've just said.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very interesting because this could lead to other internal anti-government unrest in terms of other bodies that are anti-government taking up arms as well, putting a further risk to the current state that Ethiopia is in.
Well, we've seen over I think it was on Friday, when some of the very obscure armed groups signed some sort of a pact in Washington, promising that they are now joining forces with the TPLF against the government of Abiy Ahmed. But it's important to note that those that signed this, about 9 organizations that signed this treaty with TPLF, do not really represent the majority of the Ethiopians. There are a number of organizations that are much, much more stronger, who were in the past in coalition with the TPLF and Abiy Ahmed, who did not participate in that meeting. So these are small little parties that have started using propaganda and the media to spread basically misinformation about what's happening in Ethiopia, trying to mimic what has been happening in Afghanistan, saying that in the next couple of hours we'll be knocking at the gates of Addis Ababa, which is something that is far-fetched at the moment, given the size and the readiness of the Ethiopian Defense Force.
Far-fetched at the moment, THEMBISA, but Addis Ababa is the seat of the African Union, and should something like this happen, it could be quite an embarrassment for the organization as well as for the rest of the African continent if there is a storm of Addis Ababa, and which may result in the close of the union in that state, part of the state.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we had the Americans already who have asked all its citizens to leave Ethiopia with immediate effect. And you have hundreds of African diplomats who are based in Addis Ababa and other parts of Ethiopia. So if the war was to break, particularly in Addis Ababa, you are likely to have a serious situation, particularly when it comes to the image of the African Union. It will be extremely embarrassing for the African Union to having to close their offices because of the conflict. But importantly, the collapse of Ethiopia could also trigger a disturbance in the maritime business, particularly on the Gulf of Eden, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Red Sea, because Ethiopia has always been, given that it's a bigger power and it's got a much more stronger military in that part of the world, the Horn of Africa, has always been this informal police of the waters leading to the Red Sea. So if Ethiopia collapses, it could be a free rein for organizations such as Al-Shabaab, for example, in Somalia. So the entire waters of the Red Sea will be left exposed, and which means therefore that the business in that part of the world will be disturbed. So you need a stronger Ethiopia to maintain stability in the Horn of Africa. Without strong Ethiopia, you are likely to have a problem, not only in Somalia and other neighboring countries, but the entire Horn of Africa will just be disrupted because of the collapse of Ethiopia, besides the African Union and the hundreds of diplomats that find themselves there at the moment.
Right, very worrying picture that you've painted there, and the fact that it goes beyond just within the borders of Ethiopia, getting into the maritime industry as well. A final thought from you, THEMBISA, what about a solution? What needs to be done to alleviate the situation? Should bodies like the AU get involved, the East African community? What exactly needs to be done?
Well, one, you need to have a peaceful negotiated settlement in Ethiopia at the moment. But I'm not quite sure whether the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is willing to do that, given where we are at the moment in terms of hostilities. But one will hope that the negotiated settlement will be the first option. But Abiy Ahmed has vowed that they want to put this problem to bed once and for all. In other words, they'll fight to the last drop of blood and ensure that they eradicate the TPLF. So the involvement of other economic bloc and political blocs in the region might assist. We know that Uganda and Kenya are in the process of trying between the two warring parties, but the government of Ethiopia has since refused to participate in those discussions. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's going to be an all-out war, and I'm not quite certain that the government of Abiy Ahmed will give in to a peaceful negotiation with the TPLF, given where we are at the moment in terms of hostilities.
Very worrying developments coming out of the Horn of Africa in Ethiopia. Thank you.